Believe it or not, I've got 2 or 3 hummingbirds. And there was just one here that was humming. I was just walking through the yard the other day, and a hummingbird flew right in front of my face on its way through the yard. And I've seen a couple of them 2 or 3 times just hanging around. And I haven't had a hummingbird feeder up in about 28 or 29 years. So I got one figuring that I don't have all of the kind of plants they need, and they're in the yard. So I put it up yesterday, and within an hour, there was a hummingbird at the feeder. Now I'm really pushing the idea of them accepting me. I have a bright red face mask on, and I think it almost tricked that bird into going to the feeder. But anyway, yes, I'm going to stand here for a moment and see if it comes back. They're fascinating. They're fascinating. These are ruby-throated hummingbirds. They're the only ones we have in Massachusetts. I don't know if I've seen the same one several times or if I'm seeing more than one. They haven't held still long enough for me to see whether they're male or female or what. So that one took off and went to a house that doesn't have a feeder. What I had thought they were doing at first was cutting through the yard on the way down to those yards, because I think the people at the end of the street have a feeder. Because the day that it flew right in front of my face, it was headed in the other direction, as if it was going home that way. And the reason I say that is because it was like in the morning that it headed up to my right, where I just pointed to, and in the afternoon it was going back the other direction. So I'm thinking they have a route through the neighborhood of flowers, gardens, and feeders. I keep thinking they're dragonflies. I mean, they're the same size as some of the dragonflies I have around here. So we'll give this another second, and if it doesn't come back, I'm going to stop talking. When I was about 13, I had a parakeet named Pete, and I used to take him outside and hang his cage from a tree so he could be outside. And we used to hang him near the feeder so he could see other birds. Kind of a silly idea now, I think, but anyway, my brother was about 10, and he would stand there with seed in his hand and his hand open, and the chickadees would land on his hand. Which is kind of what I'm trying now, only I'm not doing it with the seed. So this is obviously more than likely not going to happen, but I'll give it a few more minutes. And of course, I hope I haven't scared it away from the feeder completely. You know what they do? They hover near the leaves of the trees, and they're almost invisible. They have to eat. I looked it up. They have to eat their own weight in nectar or insects each day. Talk about not being able to stop flying. You have to fly to find it, and you have to find it to fly. Well, So let's try again next time. I want to do an update on the garden. You see it's a stick garden right now. You may or may not see a hummingbird zipping around. Hopefully you will. This is July 1st, and this is how things are going. Now, as far as the pumpkins, and I forget the name of the variety I bought, they are supposed to be a smaller size green pumpkin variety. My brother happened to tell me that they are open pollinated, which means if you let them open pollinate by bees and naturally, you can get variations in the pumpkins themselves. But I'm wondering if it also means variations in size. This is one of the pumpkin plants. It has 10-inch cross leaves at this point. This is the next biggest, which is at about 5.5 or 6 inches. But then, if you look at this one, and that one straight ahead at the back of the picture, these two, and one in the corner there. Now these right here, this one, there's two there, and the one over in the corner. What happened was not all the seeds germinated, so after about a week of these being up and in the ground, I put more seeds in the ground. So these are maybe, because then it took some time to germinate, maybe 2 weeks behind. But I'm wondering if it's also the variety. The other thing that comes into this is that the land slants down to the left in this view, which means these have better drainage, and that these would retain a little bit more moisture. So this is what's going to happen when you buy one packet of seeds. There were only 25 seeds, and you might get all good plants, or you might get a variety like this, and we haven't even gotten to the pumpkins yet. So then in the middle of the two pumpkin plants is chives. In the blue containers are pot marigolds. They're an older heirloom type of marigold, and they are going to go in the ground, basically where you see them. So what I did today was get out my garden stakes, and I tried to do 3 rows of 5, because I have 15 tomato plants in those seed starters. Now we've already had the threat of severe storms and wind, so before I went too much further with all of this, I wanted to get the stakes in the ground, and now next to each stake I'm going to plant a tomato plant. So I have 15 stakes. In addition, each group of pumpkins or a pumpkin plant has a stake, because this one, you can see, is starting to throw out vines. And this is what I'm going to have to be training to keep off of the other plants. So the tomatoes look pretty pale right now, but that's partly because of the soil they're in that seed starter tray, and partly because of hardening them off. So the sooner I can get them into the ground, maybe put some cow manure around the top of them to soak in with the rain, the better. The middle is still the cherry tree, and the cotton, some of them are, this is cotton right here. That one is not sending out any lower leaves, but the Pima cotton, which is on the tallest stake, is. So Pima cotton you can top off, and it will send branches and leaves out on the bottom. So it's crowded. It's extremely crowded. It's going to be even more crowded. Like the tomato plants are going to be as tall as the stakes probably. The pot marigolds are going to get lost in the foliage. And the pumpkins are probably going to be taking over everything. And, so maybe it's almost a good thing that I only have two that are really big right now. Then in the containers, I have thyme and beets and onions. And I threw some tobacco seeds in there, but I don't know if they're going to come up. That's another southern crop. And I had a whole batch of seedlings, and they didn't make it. And now I'm trying again, but I don't know if they'll make it. Oh, we just missed a hummingbird. It was right at the feeder while I was talking. And then over there, you see a huge bumblebee. My white pines, my small white pines, on top of the lobster pot, and my cart with geraniums in it, and the daylilies are starting to bloom. At the end of the garden here, you see a maple tree, 3 pine trees, a cherry tree, and a crabapple tree, all in their pots. So these are not all of my trees. Now, the other thing I had wanted to do that I'm not going to have room for is put my cactus, the Opuntia humifusa. I wanted them in here too, excuse me, at this end of the garden, for better drainage. I wanted to, because they would then, when all of this dies back, they would still be there for the winter garden. So, but this is a garden update on July 1st. On the left there, you see the feeder I grabbed that somebody had for free. And I actually had to replace one board on the side. And the red feeder is a hummingbird feeder. And I have now seen at least one male hummingbird. I have, oh my gosh. Oh, I thought one was there. It's the leaf behind it. I have seen one. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Oh my gosh. Come on this side. Just for a second. Just for a second. I think that's a female. It's a female. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Where does she go? I'm only about 6 feet away from the feeder. I must have had a little premonition. I saw that leaf and then she was there. So I have now seen both a male and a female. Amazing. Amazing. Happy 4th of July coming up.